Thursday morning, March 14th, 1957, 9:17 a.m. Sing Sing Correctional Facility, Ossining, New York. The corridor smells like industrial soap and rusted metal. Steam from the kitchen vents rises through the barred windows, mixing with the cold air coming off the Hudson River. The sound of 200 men eating breakfast echoes through the cell block. Metal trays scraping concrete, guards' boots on tile, the occasional shout swallowed by stone walls. In the northwest corner of the mess hall, at table 14, Ellsworth Raymond Johnson sits with his hands folded. He is 51 years old. His posture is upright. His eyes are focused on the wall ahead. Across from him, a white inmate from Kentucky leans forward and speaks 3 words. What happens in the next 72 hours will be discussed in underworld circles for the next 2 decades. It will be whispered in Harlem barbershops, recounted in prison yards from Attica to Rikers, and become a case study in calculated violence. By Sunday night, one man will be blind in his right eye, and Bumpy Johnson will smile only once.
To understand what happens inside Sing Sing in March of 1957, you must first understand what Bumpy Johnson represents on the outside. By the mid-1950s, Ellsworth Bumpy Johnson is the most strategically positioned black organized crime figure in New York City. He does not control Harlem, no single man does, but he operates as the primary liaison between the Italian mafia families and the independent black numbers runners who dominate street-level gambling in Upper Manhattan. His network generates an estimated $12 million annually in 1957 dollars. Adjusted for inflation, that figure exceeds $130 million today. Bumpy does not dress like a gangster. He wears tailored 3-piece suits from a Jewish tailor on 125th Street named Saul Rothstein. He reads Voltaire, Sun Tzu, and the New York Times every morning. He tips waiters at the Red Rooster 20%. He walks with a cane, not because he needs it, but because it's weighted with lead at the base. He is known for 3 things: his intellect, his silence, and his absolute refusal to be disrespected. But in March of 1957, Bumpy Johnson is not in Harlem. He is serving a 15-year sentence for conspiracy to sell heroin. The arrest occurred on November 2, 1956, at 2:40 a.m. outside the Savoy Ballroom on Lenox Avenue. Federal agents had been monitoring his phone lines for 8 months. The indictment listed 14 co-defendants. Bumpy took a plea to reduce sentences for 2 of his associates, a decision that surprised prosecutors, but not those who knew him. He entered Sing Sing on January 9, 1957. Prison, for Bumpy Johnson, is not rehabilitation, it is theater. He understands that respect inside a maximum security facility operates on different mechanics than respect on the street. Outside, respect is maintained through alliances, through financial leverage, through the ability to mobilize violence without committing it yourself. Inside, respect is maintained through visibility. Bumpy does not join gangs.
He does not align with racial factions. He sits alone during meals. He reads in his cell. He speaks rarely, and when he does, his tone is low and measured. The guards know who he is. So do the inmates. By March, Bumpy has been inside for 63 days. He has not been involved in a single altercation. He has not raised his voice. He has not filed a grievance. This bothers certain people.
Sing Sing in 1957 houses approximately 2,200 inmates. The population is divided along predictable lines: Italian organized crime figures in the East Wing, Irish and Polish crews near the workshops, black inmates concentrated in the older cell blocks along the river. There is no official segregation, but the social geography is absolute. Bumpy's cell block, B block, is majority black. His cell is on the 3rd tier, number B347. His cellmate is a 23-year-old car thief from Brooklyn named DeWitt Turner. DeWitt does not speak unless spoken to. He has learned this in the first week. The mess hall is the only space where the population mixes. Breakfast is served from 8:30 to 9:30 a.m., lunch from 12 to 1 p.m., dinner from 5 to 6 p.m. The tables are bolted to the floor. Each table seats 8 men. Guards stand along the perimeter with wooden batons. Bumpy eats the same thing every morning: 2 slices of white bread, black coffee, and whatever protein is being served. On March 14th, it is powdered eggs and a strip of fatty pork. He sits at table 14. He does not sit at the head of the table. He sits in the middle, on the north-facing bench, where he can see both entrances. To his left is a numbers runner from the Bronx named Ernest Fox. To his right is a former merchant marine named Abel Green, serving time for manslaughter. Across from him are 3 younger inmates, 2 from Harlem, 1 from Newark. At 9:17 a.m., a white inmate approaches the table. His name is Clayton Wade Hargrove.
Clayton Hargrove is 34 years old. He is 6 feet 1 inch tall, approximately 210 pounds. He has blonde hair, a scar across his left eyebrow, and a tattoo of a Confederate flag on his right forearm. He is serving 12 years for aggravated sexual assault. The victim was a 16-year-old black girl in Lexington, Kentucky. The trial lasted 4 days. Hargrove's defense argued consent. The jury, all white, deliberated for 90 minutes. The judge, noting the severity of the physical injuries, imposed the maximum sentence. Hargrove has been at Sing Sing for 11 months. He is not affiliated with any organized group, but he has gravitational pull among a smaller cluster of Southern white inmates, men serving time for violent crimes, men who do not hide their racial hostility, men who view prison as an extension of the social hierarchies they grew up with. Hargrove does not like the fact that Bumpy Johnson sits quietly. He does not like the fact that Bumpy is treated with deference by inmates who do not extend that deference to him. He does not like the fact that Bumpy, a black man, carries himself as if he is untouchable. On the morning of March 14th, Hargrove finishes his breakfast at table 9. He stands. He walks across the mess hall. He stops at table 14. The conversation at the table goes quiet. Hargrove looks down at Bumpy. He says, "You that nigger from Harlem?" The word echoes. Bumpy does not look up. He continues eating. His fork moves from the tray to his mouth. He chews slowly. He sets the fork down. He picks up his coffee. He takes a sip. Hargrove leans closer. He says, "I'm talking to you, boy." The men at the table do not move. Ernest Fox's jaw tightens. Abel Green stares at his tray. The younger inmates glance toward the guards, but the guards are watching the back of the room, where 2 men are arguing over a spilled drink. Bumpy sets his coffee down. He folds his hands on the table. He looks up at Hargrove, and he smiles.
Not a wide smile, not a threatening smile, a small, polite smile. The kind of smile you give a waiter when they refill your water. Hargrove's face flushes red. He says, "You think this is funny?" Bumpy does not answer. Hargrove leans down until his face is 6 inches from Bumpy's. He says, "Where I'm from, we'd have hung you from a tree." Bumpy's smile does not change. He says very quietly, "Where you from, they still doing that?" Hargrove straightens. His fists clench. A guard near the south wall shouts, "Hargrove, sit down!" Hargrove does not sit down. He stares at Bumpy for another 3 seconds. Then he walks away. The conversation at table 14 resumes. Bumpy finishes his coffee.
The insult is not forgotten. In prison, a public disrespect is not a private matter. It is a performance. It is witnessed. It is repeated. It becomes a question. By lunchtime, the interaction has been discussed in 3 separate cell blocks. The question being asked is simple. What is Bumpy going to do? Some inmates believe he will do nothing. Bumpy Johnson is 51 years old. He is not a young enforcer anymore. He is serving a long sentence. He has no reason to risk additional time over words. Others believe the opposite. They know that Bumpy's reputation was not built on physical dominance. It was built on precision, on calculated responses, on making examples that resonated beyond the immediate target. Bumpy does not discuss the incident. He returns to a cell at 10 a.m. He reads for 2 hours. At noon, he attends lunch. He sits at the same table. He eats the same way. Hargrove is not in the mess hall. On Friday, March 15th, nothing happens. Bumpy follows his routine. He wakes at 6 a.m. He showers, he reads, he eats. He walks the yard during recreation. He speaks to no one about Hargrove. Ernest Fox, sitting beside him during dinner, finally asks, "You gonna handle that?" Bumpy does not look at him. He says, "Already handled." Fox frowns. He says, "Ain't nothing happened." Bumpy cuts his food. He says, "Not yet."
Clayton Hargrove loses his right eye. The antenna is never recovered. Terrence Mills is placed in solitary confinement, but no charges are filed because no witness comes forward. Big June is not questioned. Hargrove is transferred to the prison hospital for 8 days. When he returns to general population, he is moved to a different cell block. He does not speak to Bumpy Johnson again. Bumpy is never directly connected to the attack. No inmates testify. No guards file reports. The official record lists the incident as inmate on inmate assault, motive unknown. But inside Sing Sing, everyone knows. On Sunday, March 17th, during breakfast, Bumpy Johnson sits at table 14. Ernest Fox leans over and whispers, "Heard Hargrove ain't coming back to B Block." Bumpy nods. He does not smile. He says, "Good." Abel Green, seated across from him, says, "They sayin' Terrence did it." Bumpy spreads butter on his toast. He says, "Terrence got a temper." Ernest Fox grins. He says, "Man walked up and said one word to the wrong person." Bumpy takes a bite of toast. He says, "That's usually how it happens." The table goes quiet. Bumpy finishes his breakfast. He stands. He walks back to his cell. Bumpy Johnson is released from Sing Sing on November 3, 1963, after serving 6 years and 10 months of his 15-year sentence. He is granted parole for good behavior. He returns to Harlem. He resumes his position in the criminal hierarchy, though the landscape has changed. The Italian families are losing ground. The heroin trade is expanding. Younger men are challenging the old structures. Bumpy Johnson will die of a heart attack on July 7, 1968, while eating dinner at Wells Restaurant on 7th Avenue. He is 62 years old. By then, the story of what happened to Clayton Hargrove has been told and retold in dozens of prisons across the state of New York. The details shift depending on the teller. Some say Bumpy did it himself. Others say he paid someone.
A few claim it never happened at all, but the core of the story remains the same. A man disrespected Bumpy Johnson in public. Bumpy smiled, and 72 hours later, the man could no longer see out of his right eye. Clayton Wade Hargrove is released from Sing Sing in 1966. He returns to Kentucky. He works in a coal mine for 3 years before being arrested again for assault. He dies in 1981 in a VA hospital in Louisville. He never speaks publicly about what happened in March of 1957. But in the decades that follow, the story becomes a parable. Not about violence, about consequences. About the cost of underestimating a man who has spent his entire life ensuring that disrespect is never free.